Welcome, everyone. My name is Ian Blackburn. I'm the host of tonight's program with Zoom into Wine and Learn About Wine coming together to present Rioja. Just a little show of hands. How many of you have been to Rioja before? All right.
Oh, great.
Fantastic. I'll just plant a seed right now. November of this year, we intend to take a group of about 10 to 12 people on a tour of Spain, starting up in Bilbao and working our way through Rioja down to Madrid. So you're welcome to look at the website and let us know if you're interested in finding out more about joining me in Spain. But tonight, we've got some amazing energy on this Zoom. Not only did you get delivered 6 wine samples, and I hope everybody's kits showed up in good shape, but there's some great wines that we're going to be tasting tonight. There is a little number on the front of each one talking about which one they are, so you can see 1 through 6 in your kit. We are going to start with the rosé in just a few moments, but before that, let me open up our presentation. And open this here. Here we go. There's a fantastic way for everybody to be involved tonight. We want you not just to watch, but to ask questions. There's a chat box in there, and we'd love to hear your comments. Lisa Tess, thanks for starting us off with the rosé is lovely. I'm going to introduce our co-hosts this evening, and like I said, we've got a world of great talent. Dane Chesson is with us. She's with the Wines of Rioja, and Dane is going to be kind of our co-moderator tonight. And Nina is with us tonight
everyone.
as well. Hola, ladies. Nina is going to not only be a backup with Dane, but she'll be on the chat, answering any questions and keeping that chat box alive. So please use that as much as you can. And Dane, we're going to cover a lot of ground tonight. Nina, Spain is a big country. Take us into Spain and tell us where we are. Oh, I got you on mute there. Sorry, Nina.
There we go. I got it. Spain is a large part of the Iberian Peninsula, and I think most people think of Spain as a warm or hot, dry place, which would normally affect the wines there. But we are in northern Spain, and that's where Rioja is. It is in close proximity to the Atlantic Ocean and the Bay of Biscay, and close to France. And so these are 2 major weather, it's exposed to 2 major weather systems, right? The consistent cold, windy, and rainy weather that comes off the Atlantic over the Cantabria Mountains into the region of Rioja. And it is protected on the southern end from the Meseta, the hot, dry plain, by a series of mountain ranges.
Dane, we've got 3 zones in Rioja.
We do. And also Rioja is a very small region, just, to keep this in perspective, because it is a land with so much diversity and one of the top 5, 6, global regions out there, for wine, but we're tiny. We're the size of Delaware. We're about 4 hours north central from Madrid, and about the same if you were coming over from Barcelona. So like Nina said, we are definitely located in the north, and I can attest to it gets cold in the winter. We had snow this year, so it was very cold. But our 3 main regions are Rioja Alta, Rioja Alavesa, and Rioja Oriental. Oriental is our largest area. It was renamed in 2017 to be Rioja Oriental, or East in Spanish. It was in the past, or you all who've been there before might have been familiar with that region called Rioja Baja, but we now have renamed it. So Rioja Alta does have an extraordinary history with so many different tributaries and everything, but it's known distinctively for its Atlantic climate. It's, mainly south of the Ebro River, which is our, main source. And potentially we'll be able to go into a little bit about that later. We have the most vineyards. It is a part of the subzone in Alta. Alavesa is definitely has a Basque culture. It's a part of part of it is actually technically in País Vasco. There's tons of small medieval hill towns. It's all north of the Ebro River. And it is the smallest subzone, a ton of family-run wineries. And mainly Tempranillo is grown up in Alavesa. Then you have Oriental, it's huge. And back in the day, it used to really be known for its garnacha. They're replanting a lot more garnacha there now because the terroir, the high elevation, is truly ideal for it. And it's much warmer. It's drier climate because of the Mediterranean influence. So we really have three very distinct, as small as we are, we have three very distinct regions, sub-regions.
And when we taste these wines tonight, a lot of them come from a blend of these regions, and some of them come from single vineyards. So we'll talk about that as we get into each particular wine. But there's such an amazing history that connects Rioja, and I love the history of Rioja and how it's gone from being a volume region to more of a quality region.
Yeah, absolutely. And, before we started this, Ian and Nina and I spoke and we're like, oh, it's only 2,000, years of history. Where do we begin, And the consensus is that you all really wanted to get to the wine tasting, and potentially 2,000 years wasn't going to cut it for this. Maybe we'll have to go back and do a whole history class one day, Ian. But sure. I think for the sake of this webinar and being cognizant of time, we were thinking starting really when Rioja kind of came into its own of making more modern, into the modern winemaking world. And that's right around the mid 1800s. And it was a busy time in the 1800s in Rioja. First of all, we had our first two established wineries, Marqués de Murrieta and Marqués de Riscal. Marqués de Riscal was founded in 1858, but it had the first bottling of Rioja ever in 1862. Marqués de Murrieta, right outside of Logroño, and we'll be trying their white wine, beautiful white wine tonight. It was actually founded before in 1852, but they didn't start their first bottling much later. So it's kind of a rivalry between these two bodegas, who opened first, who had the first wine. So they both like to say that they're number one, but they're technically number one in different ways in terms of opening. So right around the same time in the 1860s is when a breakout in Bordeaux, which Bordeaux is relatively close to Rioja. It's about a 5-hour drive from Rioja. So a breakout of phylloxera happened between 1860 and 1880. And essentially what's phylloxera? It's a microscopic louse that just devastates vineyards. So all the vineyards were destroyed. It really affected, most of Europe. And and then also the rootstock. It just devastates your vineyard. And what happened at that time? We already had Rioja moving forward to getting education about some of the more modern, more Bordelais wine-making techniques. And then the Bordelais, who, of course, they have to make wine. They're from France. They're, from Bordeaux. They ended up finding Rioja and the terroir there, the earth there, just being excellent to grow grapes. And so they really brought their wine making techniques and style down to Rioja. And it really did start quite a wine making revolution, if you will, into Rioja. Rioja really taking the, barrel aging seriously and moving into, smaller barrels and timelines and, working the land in a much more progressive way. So, we're going to jump the line from the 1800s all the way over to, various things happened in 1899, actually. Phylloxera did finally end up coming to Rioja, and they did exactly what everybody else did, it was a time of, renewing vineyards. But in jumping forward much more significantly in 1925 is when Rioja was given the Denominación de Origen status classification, and essentially a classification of quality. Then in 91, we took on the Denominación de Origen Descalificada. We're awarded that. And that puts us into a whole different classification of quality. Right now, currently, there is only the DOC Rioja, and then the DOC Priorat that hold that superior higher designation in Spain. There's been rumblings that potentially there's some others on the way, but Spain does not move fast. So we've been the only two for since 1991. You look at this timeline and you're like, that's interesting. So 1925 to then all the way to 1991. That's a pretty large window of, hey, what else happened? We have to, we must definitely remember a little bit of, geopolitical and, and global history is that, from 1936 to 1939, my memory's steel trap right there, was the Spanish Civil War. And then, of course, 39, you go into World War II, which because of the devastation of Spain in their civil war, they weren't active participants in World War II. It was a unfortunate time for Spain in general. And then you go in from 38, you have Francisco Franco taking power, the dictator, until the 70s, until 73. So that's what was going on. They were really struggling. It was a very poor, it was not really developed country. And, being under a dictatorship for so long, it most definitely, affected the wine world in tremendous ways there. And so after Francisco Franco is really when you started seeing, the slowly, 20 years later, money started coming in. They were able to reinvest in vineyards, reinvest in wineries. And I would say it was, until probably the 90s where you're really having amazing quality wines. Let's talk grapes, because we're going to be drinking some amazing wines that have all these varietals. Rioja, if you've been to Rioja, if you've, drank Rioja, if you're, want to explore it, we're a red wine region, 100%. We're 91% red wine. We grow red grapes, and the majority of our grapes are Tempranillo. Tempranillo is actually from Rioja. Tempranillo is grown all over Spain, and it is a very popular varietal around Spain. But it is our baby. We're making, 80, 87, 80, 88%. We work with Tempranillo. Next, we have Garnacha, and Garnacha is, in Spanish, Garnacha, it's Grenache. But the French stole that because it's actually a Spanish varietal. But it's very true. So we have the Garnacha Tinta. We also have Graciano, Masuelo, and Matarana Tinta. I think for the most part, the wines we'll be trying today are Tempranillo. There is some Garnacha, and we'll have to check if the Imperial has a little Graciano. I can't remember right now, but we'll get into that. And then our main white grape varietals are Viura and Malvasia, Garnacha Blanca. I will tell you that we have a mutation on our hands. The Tempranillo, the red Tempranillo grape, years ago did a mutation into a Blanco. And it is being planted faster than anybody would expect it. So we pretty much within 10 years went from hardly any Tempranillo Blanco to currently we're at 12%. That's huge. Yeah, I mean, Nina, remember when you were working with the Consejo as well? It wasn't even on our radar really. It was very, and now it's quite frequently, you're seeing a bit of Tempranillo Blanco being blended in with Viura, and then there's also single varietal bottlings now that are available in the United States. So I think that's a big kind of showstopper when it comes to what's kind of what's new in the varietal world.
See, what I'm loving about tonight's show is that we're covering not only 6 different houses, but a wide variety of styles, and we've got some great vintages throughout. Which it's a little redundant to be talking vintage right now, but you can see on this vintage chart the number of good vintages and excellent vintages in the last 20 years is extreme, and that has a lot to do with our understanding now of viticulture as well as viniculture and the advancements that we've made in science and understanding, and the global 100%. Warming. Yeah.
Can I just interject? Rioja is Spain's finest wine region, most important in establishing a lot of things from grape growing. And so it is the birthplace of Tempranillo. It is also the birthplace of the Spanish language.
Castellano,
right. So, all right. Can I just say a word about vintages? Because you're tasting several different vintages tonight.
Sure.
Rioja.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wanted to have this
absolutely
slide because I think it's important for us to understand. Every important global wine region does not rate its vintages. Okay. I think we all know about port. Port rates its vintages, right? And so Rioja does as well. So what does this mean? In general, a rating of excellent or very good means that all across the board, in all of the vineyards, the wines produced are consistently very good or excellent and have an amazing ability to age. I think this is the most important thing about Rioja, that the quality of Rioja and the style that the reputation of the region is built on is all about oak aging, okay, and aging in the bottle. So, when you have a region that ages its wines well, then the investment that you're making in those wines is incredible. So I would argue that, I don't think anyone would argue against me that, a Crianza, right, a very basic oak aged wine from 2019 is going to be as good an investment as a Gran Reserva, right, as the years progress. And this is a good benchmark for those of you who, especially all of your Ian's customers, right? Because he sells wines to invest in and to buy and to sell. So anyway,
So also, I would just
like,
like,
yeah. Go on.
We've
Go
got
ahead.
just a couple more slides before we
Yeah.
can taste our first wine, gang. And so I just want to, we're going to be talking about the use of wood, but this was a huge thing that Bordeaux brought to the Rioja region, is the use of wood, and that elevated the quality. And we're going to talk tonight a lot, almost every wine, about the different uses of wood throughout the show. We're going to be starting tonight off with the Muga, and I've already been seeing people tasting wines 3 and 4. So if you could slow down for a moment and let us catch you, because we got a little presentation about each wine that we're tasting. Wine number 1 isn't probably in your glass, or a memory of it at least. So we'll go from Muga to Marqués de Murrieta to Cune to La Rioja Alta to López de Heredia, and then finishing up with a Cune Imperial Grand Reserva. Our first wine is from Muga. This is presented by Juan Muga. I apologize, but he was in New York when we recorded, and we have some pretty tough video. I'm going to play a couple of moments of it, but the audio was cutting out pretty regularly, so we did our best to edit this together. But let's taste our Rosato together and watch Juan Muga.
Yeah, none of us can hear anything either.
Is that true?
Yeah, we can't
Is
hear
the
him.
audio is gone?
Yeah.
There was no audio at all. Couldn't hear anything.
All right, let me find out why that's happening. If I play it now, can you hear it?
Aro,
Yeah.
Aro is the most important village in terms of wineries. The most famous wineries in El Barrio de la Estación, where we are located, the Roda, Condonia, Rioja Alta, Gómez Cruzado, Bilbainas, Cune, and ourselves, Muga. In the late 1800s, people from Rioja, they used to make wine, but without aging wines. So the French people, they bring their know-how, the know-how of making wine. That's why thanks very much to the Bordeaux people, because now we have our own identity, but they bring the French people bring the know-how of winemaking. Been involved in wine business since 1932. Was our grandfather Isaac, and who start making wine, and it was at that time was very important. Where we had most of our garnachas location, because Muga we have 450 hectares in total, but they are located in different areas. So the Further Muga Rosé is 100%. Just all garnachas, 50 years old garnachas, but the regular Muga Rosé is made like 60-65% of garnachas, and 30-35% to have the nice acidity and citric taste and freshness. So still, we keep the way my grandfather did make the rosé, a very light color, very fruity, very fresh, and we are it's one of our babies from the wineries, because it helps a lot. Also, the rest of the wines, white, rosé, white, red. So it's a very important one for us.
Nice shot. This is the family.
Right. Well, so we are 100% family business. It's 45% of our business, but the export market is more important, and we are in 82 different countries nowadays. So we are still 100% family business. And it's also we try to keep our own identity, having everything in home. We are not using for the red wines, so we are not using any stainless steel. We have our own coopery. We buy the oak in France and East Europe countries. We're rocking by rocking by gravity during the aging of the wine in oak. We find the wines, the red wines are on filter just fine with egg whites. So this is a trip the way following the new rules of the market. We try to keep the identity of our grandfather.
Muga has how many acres of vineyards, Juan?
Actually, we have all over Rioja because we have also Grenache for the red wine. We have in Rioja Oriental, in South Rioja. We have some Grenache for the red wine. And so from South Rioja to North Rioja to Aro, we have 450 hectares.
Wow.
I don't know exactly in acres how many acres are, but
That's like almost 1,000 acres. Yeah, that's beautiful.
thank you. Thank you.
So the wine that we're tasting today is mostly Garnacha and Vieira. Yeah.
Right. Is the Vieira is to give to the wine some freshness and nice acidity, citric acidity, and for the fruit, the fresh fruit, we are using the Grenache, but the Grenache is 60-65% Grenache, and then the rest is Vieira. Is the wine stainless steel or our rosé? We try to make something. This wine we have in the Najarilla area. We have a winery. Muga have a second winery just for the white and rosé, and we are using stainless steel. Yeah, because this winery is close to the nice Grenache. We don't want the grapes traveling. We want to be there. So that's why in the Grenache area we have our own winery to process our rosé wine. Well, we're going to taste the rosé now with our team, and we thank you for joining us today to tell us about Muga. Showcase is going to be dynamic, and I think everyone's going to love this rosado from Muga. So thank you, Juan, for joining us today and getting us started. Yeah, and thanks you so much to Merchant of Wine for the support. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, I'm sorry that we had some of that chop, but I think he did a great job. We even had to continue to repeat some of the things, and he just held on like he was riding a horse. It was great. This wine's under $20, Lisa, and in fact, we had a problem. We brought this wine in to do this event, and it started selling like fire, and they ran out of stock, and we had to figure out how to get more into our warehouse in time for this presentation. So we now we have a good amount. We will sell out again, but there's more landing like tomorrow. So we'll be able to fill any orders of any size tonight if you like this rosé called a rosado, and the price point is fantastic. The quality's amazing, and you get to the Muga name at a very nice price point. So it's a fantastic value proposition inside of wine. So let's take a look there. $17.95 is the number. Everyone's got a 10% discount code that you could use on this. It does discount, and that's a hell of a bottle of wine for $15.20 with a 10% off. We're going to move now into Marqués de Miria and wine number 2, which I've already seen some of you have drank. So we're going to relive some of those memories with you. But there are a great number of white Riojas, but I don't know of any of them that are greater to me. This is one of my favorite wines of the world. We don't have to be talking about white Rioja. I like to sneak this wine in to great Burgundy sessions and white wine tastings of the world, and have people try to figure out what it is and where it's from. So let's go right into our video. and learn a little bit. Tonight, we're going to be visiting a number of key locations like Haro, but their vineyard is actually in Lograno, or their winemaking facility anyway. They've got vineyards everywhere, I'm sure. But this is Marquez de Murrieta, and we meet with a very eloquent gentleman, and I'll have him take it away.
Next up in our showcase on Rioja, we're going now straight to Madrid, where Artur de la Casson is sitting. He's the international director of Marquez de Murrieta. Good morning, good evening to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jan. Pleasure to be here with you. I'm very happy to be presenting Capinia with you today.
And I'm going to have you take the lead, Artur. We'll look at the map and tell us, where is Marquez de Murrieta?
Marquez de Murrieta is just in the outskirts of Logroño, about 5 minutes away from Logroño. Logroño is the capital of Rioja, and we are nearly in between Rioja Alavesa, Rioja Alta, and Rioja Baja. But the estate, which is called Finca Higay, is within the Rioja Alta sub-appellation.
I'm sorry to step on you. The historic nature of all these properties. I know there's been some recent upgrades to the facility, but you've been around for over 150 years, yes?
Yeah, now we've been actually celebrating last year in 2022 our 170th anniversary. So the whole project started a bit before 1852, but it was officially launched in 1852. And the history of Marquez de Murrieta is really special, as it was really the vision of a man called Luciano de Murrieta. He was born in Arequipa in Peru in 1822, and he started in the army. And for political reason, he was head of camp, a very important general who became the regent of Spain.
The new facility was erected in, I would say, 2018.
Yeah, 2018 was the first vintage that was made in this new facility. Historically, all the wine were made in the Castillo, in the chateau. The Castillo was the building that was built by Luciano de Murrieta, where he started his fermentation. So that's, of course, inspired by the Bordelais, by the Bordeaux estate, where the concept of the chateau is not the building itself, but the fact that you've got your own vineyard surrounding your winery. So that means that you've got this easy access and to your vineyard. It's now 25,000 square meters of winery, which is an amazing luxury for the winemaker Maria Vargas, because the space is luxury.
French oak is a big part of the wine that we're tasting today.
Yeah, of course, traditionally, Rioja has been really linked to American oak. We at Murrieta keep a strong tradition of American oak. And for some of the wines, we use a combination of both French and American, like Castille, where about 15 to 20% of our wine goes under French oak. In the case specifically of Capellania, this is 100% French oak.
And here is also where the wine, once the wines have left the barrel, they're bottled and held sometimes for years. And this type of storage is what you'll see at all the top producers in Rioja. It's quite elaborate.
Today, many producers, many wineries are selling wines en primeur, are selling wines very, very young. We've got an all opposite approach in Marquez de Murrieta.
Well, it was a very difficult decision to decide which wine we were going to be showcasing from your magnificent property. And this is considered a Pago, which means a single vineyard, yes?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to taste it now and share the extraordinary character of this wine. What do you optimally pair with this wine, and when do you think this particular production will be optimal to open and enjoy and runway?
So for me, this is a wine that can go a bit behind the classic pairing. So classic being say crab, and lobster, some oysters, because of its structure and because of the greasiness, because of the weight that this wine has. This is a wine that can be paired beautifully with white meats, with pork, with poultries.
Yeah, this is not just a great expression of white Rioja, but a great white wine of the world, and really could be served next to some of the great Burgundies. I'd love to do it in a great flight of top scoring wines of the world and see what, taste them blind and let people.
Yeah. This is quite funny what he's saying, because quite a lot of people are using it like that, white wines, white Chardonnay. But it's got something more, something different. And this is why a lot of sommeliers are big fans of Capillanha, because they can surprise the guests. And they can bring something that people will, it will enlighten people, and they will discover something that they never had before. And the fact that is, we call it the white wine with red soul, because of its pairing, because of its intensity, because of its characteristics that are so different to other white wine. I think it's a wine that really people remember once they tried it.
I really appreciate your time and explanation. Hopefully in the future I get to come and see you at the property, and real excited to taste this wine now with our guests.
Great. Enjoy your tasting.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day. Bye.
Next up in our showcase on. Hold on. Let's go through that again. I saw a lot of cool comments about this wine. It's pretty extraordinary. And tell me, Nina.
I was just going to say, it's such a great example of the ageability of Viura. Sometimes I forget, sometimes I like to have a little bit of that Malvasia, blend in with Viura, but this is just such an excellent example. I recently just had a 20, what was it? 2000, and I think a 2000 of this wine, and it was stunning. So, I'm so excited that you were able to show this, and hopefully you all will be able to make the trek to go see the new bodega. I just was there in last September, and it's stunning. But yeah, we're known for Rioja. When you think of Rioja, you think of aged wines, right? We currently have 1.5 million bottle, barrels in Rioja. We age our wine, and this is a great example that aged white wine works from Rioja.
Thyme, fennel, almond. Those are some good notes right there. And Viura is also known as Macabeo in Spain, but in Rioja they call it Viura. This is a little more of a dear wine at $80, but when you rank it next to its competition and at its quality level, it's one of the least expensive great wines of the world. It really is an incredible find, and you could buy this today, drink it now, or drink it almost a generation from now. It is that kind of wine.
Yeah, I will say, or add, what's going to happen to this wine if it ages? Like each year as it ages, it's going to be developing some of the aromas of potpourri, like a white flower potpourri, like dried white roses. And it's going to get so complex and beautiful. Beeswax is another descriptor for aged Viura. Yeah. Maybe you can't smell it right now, but it will smell like beeswax candles at some point.
Maybe a little brown butter, brown sage, that kind of all starts pulling together. And this with some game bird.
Port loin.
Sure.
Okay.
Great. Well, we're humming along now, and hopefully we've caught up to you and what you're drinking in the glass. We're going to move into wine number 3 with our first Crianza. And the day I recorded with Victor, I looked over at my assistant and she like had a tear in her eye. She goes, "That guy was amazing." So we love hanging out with Victor. Let's hear from Victor, who was talking to us from his family's operation, where he's like the 5th or so generation in Haro. And let's do it.
Now we're going to be heading to taste some Crianza with Victor Rioja, who is the CEO of Cune. And he has been with Cune for over 20 years and really seen it all happen in Rioja, and always one of the greatest values in wine. Thank you for talking to us today.
You're very welcome, Ian, and it's my pleasure to be with you here today to present my winery and a couple of our wines.
Let's talk about Cune specifically. Today we're talking about the 2019 Cune Rioja Crianza, and it just recently received 92 points. And you guys are located here in Haro?
Correct, yeah. This is the northernmost part of Rioja. I'd say it's the birthplace of Rioja.
And you said about the last 150 years, and that's almost to the date. You guys got an anniversary coming up here.
Yeah, just around the corner. You know, it's exciting because with old venerable companies, things tend to go slow, and I'm part of the 5th generation. And it's on us to celebrate 150 years. There's very few wineries anywhere that have been in the same family for 5 generations, and it's something we're very proud of. So it's my job to present these wines to you, and the wines that we make, particularly the more important wines, the Crown Reserves and so on. These wines are built to last, and they need to be better over time. If you think about the good things in life, are those that improve over time. Yeah, whether it's movie stars, homes, cars, novels, movies. Yeah, if they're not getting better with time, perhaps they weren't that good in the first place. Winery entrance. You know, back in the days when I started here, you couldn't visit the winery. It was shut out to the public. There's the vinification plant where we make the wine. That's where the grapes come into those vats, and where they become wine. The sugar, because of the alcoholic fermentation, becomes alcohol, and that's where the magic happens and the wine is made. And if you had taken that picture 100 years ago, or 150 years ago, it would be pretty much the same. It has not changed a whole lot. And I think that's a good thing.
The barrel story in Rioja is an amazing one. And the immensity is being a wine that's kind of made for the world, because you certainly can't make a business out of making wine for your local Spanish population. You've got to make wine that is exportable. And
totally, yeah. We did in the past, and we thought about it sometimes, you know, to make wine without aging in barrel, to be drunk faster. And we just didn't know how to do it. It didn't work. You know, it's not what we're about. It's not how we know how to do things. That's another beautiful picture of the winery. Again, you could have taken this picture 150 years ago. It wouldn't be too different. Exactly the same.
And we're talking right now about Crianza. It's kind of the entree into real.
Right. What does that mean? Yeah, some people get in the new world, in the US and Australia and so on, you categorize wines by varietals, and that's helpful. It's certainly helpful. You know, this is Chardonnay, this is a Pinot Noir, this is a Cabernet Sauvignon. Well, we don't do it that way. These are terroir wines. It doesn't. I'm not comfortable just saying it's a varietal wine. Yeah, it doesn't speak of the variety. It speaks of where it comes from. So, what does Crianza mean? Well, Crianza literally means to bring up, and it's a wine that's been raised for a minimum 1 year in oak barrels, small oak barrels of 225 liters in a different container. In our case, it's a concrete tank. But regardless of the vintage, the wine will have a certain style and a certain characteristic. So, in a cooler year, the wine will be a bit more subdued, a bit more mineral. In a hotter year, like 19, the wine will have a certain more power in it. The alcohol will always be very similar. You know, it's got to be within certain parameters. It can't just be 1 year this way, the other way that year. And it's useful because people that are used to the wine, that they like it, that it's in a certain way. You don't expect it to change too much. And I think the softness of this wine, the fact that it's just so damn easy to drink without losing any complexity, that's what characterizes it.
Well, as we talked about, this is our ambassador Crianza for the program, and we were tasting different levels tonight. So we're going to break right here.
And we did. We just broke hard. And the this I was writing a note here, and I just want to get to the fact that this wine sells for
Now
less
we're
than
going to
$20 on our website. And at 1995, this is where Rioja really kind of wakes you up and you go, how much is this wine? Because think about what you get for $20 in great wine. And this wine is ageable. It pairs with so many different foods. You can take it across a span of different cultural foods, from the traditional California cheeseburger to a great steak to any type of wonderful formal dining experience. There's a lot of character here, and I also will praise my team for their. We get together and pour all these little bottles. We pour it right up into the neck, so that the wine just slowly decants in these little jars, and it just works so well. It's just showing. By the way, I'm sitting in Sicily right now. I didn't tell you this, but I brought my little tasting kit with me to Sicily. I'm sitting in Sicily. It's 4 a.m, and I'm trying to drink wine, but it is these wines are waking me up. I'm feeling so much better, and I love the richness that this wine has. And we're talking about a pretty inexpensive wine, that is really representing the whole category. And Kuhne is such an important brand, right, Dane?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Victor's a phenomenal advocate for not only his wineries, but also for the region of Rioja. Like he said, he's 5th generation. So he comes with that, he built in with that package, with that passion and that commitment.
One little just fun thing that happened when I was at Kuhne before, they took me into that wine storage facility. It was such a big room. I mean, you could probably land an airplane in that hangar, and it was literally raining in there. It was creating its own weather. That's how big it was. It was tremendous. Yeah. Well, we move from Crianza into Reserva, and Dane, the Crianza story, that's basically 1 year, right?
Yeah, 1 year, and then the reserve is 3 years barrel to bottle. So we're moving into, again, when you think of Rioja, you definitely think of aging, and Reserva tends to be sort of the flagship of our wineries, right? So stylistically, the Reserva is what they put their hats on.
Yeah, and we're now going to taste La Rioja Alta.
Yes, and I love how you're doing the walking tour of Aro. So when all of these people join you in November, you literally can walk, from Muga to La Rioja Alta, and then over to Tandonia, to Lopez Guerrilla. So it's quite clever. Yeah, I like the tour that you set up in Aro.
Well, let's get together. Again, we're back in Haro, and let's take a look at with Jose as we move into this exciting Reserva.
All right, next up on our Rioja showcase, we're going around tasting some of the best wines from the best producers. And I have worked with La Rioja Alta on many occasions because they are a fantastic house, and we have carried many different levels of their wines. But this is their Reserva Viña Ardanza, and we're going to now speak with Jose Luis Navarro, but his friends call him Pepe. So, howdy, Pepe. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me again. It's a pleasure always being around.
We enjoy having you. You always bring some great wines to the forefront. And thank you for sharing all of your enthusiasm and energy for La Rioja Alta. This is a fantastic wine, 96 points by James Suckling. And 2015 is the current vintage. We have a good amount in inventory. And here's where we're at in Rioja, and just right in the town of Haro, right?
Yes, yes. We are in Haro, which is, like the capital of La Rioja Alta. And inside Haro, we are in the train station neighborhood, El Barrio de la Estación, which is the place with most centennial wineries in the world.
Well, La Rioja Alta was founded in 1890 by 5 partners. And those are the same families that are owners today, right, Pepe?
Yes, yes, the same 5 families that joined together to establish La Rioja Alta, still managing the winery and 4 other wineries that we built after today. In fact, we are in the transition up to the 6th generation.
Focused on with La Rioja Alta on this particular wine. First, 2015. It's Reserva, so it's older than it needs to be considered Reserva. It was spent some generous amount of time in some newer oak. It's all American oak, is that right, Pepe?
Yes, well, we started to use American oak when the French people came to Rioja to supply their wine after the phylloxera. And they were the one who taught Rioja how to age the wine, because before that, in Rioja, we didn't know how to age.
And your wine features a pretty large percentage of Garnacha, which makes it a distinguishing difference in style and blend or sapage, and so that's a unique feature.
Yes. Specifically, this Ardanza, as you know, is around 80% Tempranillo, 20% Garnacha. This vintage is 78-22. And then, we will use Garnacha, which is coming from La Rioja Baja or Oriental, how it's called right now. Is the only vineyard we have over there, because we believe that Garnacha has the best expression in La Rioja. It was a continental, a pre-Atlantic vintage, right? It was a cool year, so the Garnacha had a beautiful maturation time. So I think Ardanza 2015 is wonderful and helps us to round the wine after the time in age.
Here's the entrance of the winery. You can imagine walking in there now. And most of the wine is kept in the smaller or larger wood, Jose?
We use, in our case, you will see probably other wineries that they keep the wine in larger vats. We use the Bordeaux oak barrel, 225 liters, and we have our own cooperage. Every year, a winemaker comes to the United States, goes to Missouri and Tennessee, and goes to France to select the wood. We leave the staves 2 years under the sun, air drying, and then we make our own barrels. Since our wines spend in the winery at least 4 years, we need to control every step of the process. So that is, it's important for us, the timing oak.
Another look at some more of the details about our Viña Ardanza. Why is it called Viña Ardanza?
Well, Viña Ardanza, it's a family name. It's one of the founders' family. We have in our line, we have Viña Alberdi, Viña Ardanza, and Viña Arana. There are 3 of the 5 family founders, founder family names. And Ardanza was one of the founders. And it's fun because that family, the Ardanza, they had their own facility, their own winery. And in 1904, they decided to merge with La Rioja Alta.
Fantastic. That's a special wine.
It is.
904. And on our website, this wine's featured around $46. And just think about that, a 2015 wine that spent 4 years at the winery and now a couple of years in the bottle. It's just current release here in Southern California. And, big 96-point score. That's a lot of wine for $50. And that's why Rioja represents some of the greatest value in wine today. And this is one of the great examples. And it's a beauty. Thank you for sharing, Pepe.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Awesome. Dane, how's it showing for you? Are you able to taste with us tonight?
Absolutely. You might be having wine for breakfast, Ian, but I'm having it as a nightcap. So it's fantastic. It's so elegant, right? Like it's always one of my go-to wines to show for as an example of a really well-made Reserva, right? And I think it's also a great time to point out, Ian, and we might have touched on it earlier, but it's a current vintage and it's 2015. One of the things that Rioja is very known for is very few wine regions hold our wine until the winemaker or the bodega says that it's ready to go. So in essence, they're aging your wine for you. So regardless of when you're picking a wine up on the shelf or Ian's, you're ordering it with Ian and he's sending it to you, those wines have already they've been aged for you. You're not having to, put it into your wine locker and age it yourself. You can age them longer, but this is the time when the winemaker says, hey, we think it's time to be released. And it's one of the regions that Rioja has like, millions and millions of bottles of wines just sitting in cemeteries, they call it cementerios, aging. And then we touched a little bit about the vintages. 2015 is spectacular. Buy this wine, everyone. It's an amazing and impressive vintage. It's in the same ballpark as, a 2001 or a 95. It's well worth investing in this wine.
Yeah, and I made a point on it. I'm sorry, Ian.
Go ahead, Nina.
I made a point on the chat to say that the Reserva and the Grand Reserva, obviously, but Reserva is the level at which the bodega and the growers, the bodegas, the winemakers are making decisions about these wines. So, it's the grape selection, the vineyard selection, the blends. Reservas to me are some of the best values, as you've said, because it's the kind of care that would go into, a Napa Valley Cabernet that would cost you $150 a bottle, right?
Sure.
It's the care and it's the time. The thing about Rioja is it is a luxury product with time as its essence, right?
And it's trained in wood and aged in wood, so it allows this wine to age for a very long time. And when people come to me and they say, I want to get a wine gift for a friend of mine, and I say, what's their birth year? And 78, 68, 58, whatever your birth year is. Rioja is probably like the great find from your birth year, as a wonderful way to celebrate that moment. And they do get more expensive as they get older. And so that they're a great investment in that regard too, because these do double and triple over their life. And the worst case is you drink it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And Rioja is still, you still can get library wines and back vintages. They're not as difficult to seek out, and while expensive, they're not Bordeaux, style back vintage pricing. So if one is interested in, dabbling in some back vintage wines, Rioja is, to see how aged wines should taste or are tasting, Rioja is a great option to get into that. into that library, this library series wines.
You know, I get cigar box from this Vineyard
Yeah.
Danza. Any of you? Yeah, it's that beautiful balsa wood that, yeah, it's incredible.
And there's some wonderful library smells too. Like you just walked in with a bunch of old books, and
Yeah.
there's some of that going on. You know, it's things really do develop in the bottle here from this point forward. And so you got a long runway with a great wine already, but it's going to be something special. Now, well, the reason we wanted to show the Ardanza, A, because it's great, but B, because it represents kind of you know, there's enough room inside of Rioja for different philosophy to come kind of shining through in the wine. And this wine's kind of famous for its use of Grenache, right? And it's a pretty significant amount. It's over 20%.
Yeah.
And so it has a lot of different, you know, checks a lot of boxes for being unique, being stylish, being very La Rioja Alta, which is a fantastic brand. Now we're going to move to another Reserva. And this represents another extreme in the Rioja region. In fact, I think Lopez Heredia represents an extreme in the wine world. They are always looking for how is it that we can turn back the hands of time even more. And so we are going to now taste the current vintage from Lopez Heredia, the Viña Tardonia. So the vineyard's called Tardonia. This is also a Reserva, but they release on a different scale. And the current vintage is 2011. And this is insane stuff. And to present this wine, we went to Master of Wine, Martin Reyes, to talk about La Rioja Alta, also in Haro. Let's go to that video, and I think you'll love this.
All right, we were on this journey through Rioja. We've started off with a beautiful Rosado, then we moved into a Blanco, and we then hit Crianza, a Reserva. Now we're going to a second Reserva with a very different story. And we've got a great storyteller who's joining us today. We're going to be visiting Lopez de Heredia. This is a storied estate, and we need someone great to talk about Lopez Heredia, and we couldn't ask for a better guest to have Master of Wine, Martin Reyes, join us from Northern California. He is a partner in the importation of this wine. And Martin, we are so excited to be able to spend some time talking about Lopez de Heredia, the 2011, which is the current vintage for this reserve.
There it is.
Boom.
2011, Coravin, ready to go.
All right. And Martin, how long have you been a Master of Wine now?
It's been 5 years, 2018.
Spectacular.
A lot of people would agree with me. Not only is Lopez de Heredia epitomized this timeless artisanal winemaking, but the winery and the vineyard, the historic Tondonia vineyard, they have remained in the same family, in the same family hands since the beginning. It's an almost magical rarity for in the region, and they're known to produce jaw-droppingly delicious and preternaturally aged within Riojas.
This is a really special producer.
Yeah, you know, and Zaha Hadid is the Iraqi architect responsible for that front, for that piece of architecture, right in front of what is essentially a building that was constructed and remained unchanged all these years.
And with that, we look at this cellar room, and you may notice something about it. There's some philosophical ideas that Lopez has about their facility, about their location being part of the wine's journey, and the balance of nature and how the microorganisms that they have in the building protect and enhance the end product wine. This is not just for display here. This is a actual working wine cellar. But there's a great amount of love for the Tardonia wine. This is a single vineyard. And I think we're looking at that vineyard now.
Yes, we are. And it's a rarity. It's important to know that Viña Tondonia is about 100 hectares, and they're in the process of reforestation and regeneration around the property. They've had this. They've had this property now for well over about 100 years, and the Tondonia comes from the name like tondon, like a rounded shape or like a shell-shaped depression on the right bank of the Rio Ebro, which is where a very typical. Very traditional spot for that. The soil is mainly alluvial clay, and I think the key thing to unlock the greatness of Tempranillo is limestone. High proportion of limestone. The average vines are approximately 45, 50 years old. They practice traditional organic farming, organic, of course.
And you might look at this, and some wineries have little corners that, oh, that's our old winemaking facility, or this is our old, kind of a museum of the past. No, this is a working wine room that was the original winery, and it's still in use. And there are these large, old, upright barrique.
Yeah, it makes Lopez de Heredia fantastic. And I'm glad you mentioned that practice, of fixing what you own versus buying brand new. This is, on the border of continental and maritime influence that's being blocked by the mountains. Yes, there is the key, I think, to unlocking just in general Rioja and the greatness of Tempranillo is that the wide diurnal shift between day and night, and of course the soil having a high proportion of limestone. That teases out this finely tuned balance between acid, alcohol, and fruit.
Here, also kind of a blended approach with 75% Tempranillo, 15 Garnacha,
right.
10 Graciano, and Swirl.
Yes, this is now 12 years being released now, 2011.
What else is going in that glass there, Martin?
Oftentimes people think of American oak as a little bit more of chocolate or mocha. There's some hints of vanilla. Dill comes to mind often. So it's a different expression than French barrels, French oak, which tends to have more of a savory, spicy note. And these are gross generalizations, of course. I think that the beautiful thing to know is that Tempranillo milled incredibly well with American oak.
Well, we'll taste now with Dane and get everybody's feedback. We thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, Ian.
Have a good day. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
What do you think, Dane?
I could have my nose in this glass for quite a long time. Amazing, right? I mean, that mature fruit, but it's still just so fresh. I mean, we should redo this whole tasting, 10 years from now and see how these exact vintages progress.
I see a lot of you smelling this wine. What else do you guys smell or feel or taste as you explore this? Because I mean, this is what we make wine for, is to watch it mature like this. We get these fun young wines sometimes, and they're great, and they have a time and a place. But then you got these special moments where you want really to have something significant, and you can really see how this kind of all melted together over time, and really something else kind of became of it. I think that's the point. Thomas, what are you smelling in yours?
I'm never good at necessarily describing the smells. I do know that when I first smelled it, the nose just blew me away. For me, so far, this is my favorite of the reds easily. I was hypothesizing that it was 100% Tempranillo, but I'm actually quite surprised by the blend. But everything seems to be working very well together. which is an amazing thing. I actually thought the prior wine had a little bit too much Garnacha for my taste, but there you go.
There you go. And that's
There you
the
go.
great thing about wine is there's always, something for everybody. We all find what works for us. And I see you sporting those fancy glasses, so I really wanted to see what you
did. On the prior wine, I did the comparison of the Bordeaux and the Burgundy glass, and I do think the Bordeaux glass concentrated the flavors better than
Very good.
the Burgundy glass for these wines. So,
I'm glad to hear it.
yeah. Nice gift in the mail today.
Thanks for participating. Candy Washington, so glad to see you on our Zoom. Thanks for participating. Hope you're enjoying. My friend Ballin and Roger Fox. And Eric, thank you for joining us again. Lydia, how is the family? Is your son the up-and-coming sommelier in the room? Or is he's got a sweet wine?
Yeah, no, I think we have to wait until after the end of May, and he'll be back and enjoying your sweet wines, and he's expanding the scope these days. So we'll see. We've got him into a good late, not late harvest, but a Zinfandel with a lot of body. So he's getting into the non-dessert wines now.
Okay, breaking them down. That's good.
Breaking them down, exactly. But
Who's with you tonight?
This is my friend Lisa.
Hi.
She's
Lisa.
never done this before, but you met her in Beverly Hills when she and her husband joined us for, I think it was Stars of Napa.
All right.
Yeah, so we're enjoying it in our backyard here in the dark.
Yeah, this is so much fun.
Oh, great. I'm so glad you liked it. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely
For us
enjoyed it.
too.
You.
I mean, being able to share great wine is what it's all about. And, we can sit at home and open a bottle like this Tardonia by ourselves and really appreciate it. But being able to get other people's feedback off of it is why I love the wine category so much. It's just it's such a connective, convivial moment to be able to, share the excitement, behind the wine, what went into it, the history. We saw the pictures with the spiders and those wood tanks.
Yeah.
I mean, this winery is just something else to go and see. And there's so much history there. The turn of the century, and when you walk into this winery, they have this amazing wood counter that they actually built for the World Fair back in the early 1900s.
Really?
And it's just jaw dropping. Every one turn after a next, and it's certainly something that wins you over. And their wines, they are there's no way you're going to tell them to change anything, and because it all works. And these wines just are highly looked. I mean, the people that are out there looking for these wines, they're harder to get, and they are kind of pieced out. I will pat our little merchant of wine on the back. We've done a good job with Lopez, and we get rewarded with some of the rarest stuff they make. So we have their Gran Reserva, we have their Blancos, we have their Cubillo, and the Tardonia white and red. So really a fantastic spectrum. If you want to explore this brand or any of the Riojas, we're really, really proud of what we've got in the store. And I think, there's there's days of the week where opening up a Crianza is a great moment. But then there's times where we want to reach down and grab something a little more special and dear. And we are not done yet, because we've got one other great wine to taste.
All right, we were on.
And I want to get there with our Grand Reserva, which Dane, can you take us in? We went from Crianza to Reserva to Grand Reserva. What's a Grand Reserva?
So Grand Reservas are made in only, when we've been talking about vintages on this webinar, but what Grand Reservas are only made in those excellent those excellent years. And it's up to the discretion of the wineries. So we don't see Grand Reservas every year. They're not being produced every year by all the different wineries. The aging protocol is like with the Reserve, it was 3 years barrel to bottle. Grand Reserve is 5 years barrel to bottle. However, that is the minimum requirement by law. And so often you'll see the Grand Reservas, being that a 2011, a 2010 now, a 2005. So it's just the minimum requirement. And a lot, and more often than not, most of bodegas are taking time to make sure that Grand Reserva is truly ready in their minds to be drunk by the consumer, by their the ones that will enjoy it. So they're amazing. They're special wines. I know I've been looking in the chat. I know some of you are already on the Grand Reserva. So, and then Maria is she's an amazing winemaker. And I think Victor is going to be speaking about the Imperial as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were going to have Maria join him, but I mean, literally, we had tears streaming down our face when we were talking to Victor. We were enjoying his conversation. So both of them for us.
I know I love listening to him. He has so much passion and so much knowledge. So it's fantastic. But this is it. The Imperial is one of the classics when you think of Grand Reserva in Rioja.
This wine, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't this the #1 wine in the world in the Wine Spectator?
It was. That was the 2004. I have one bottle. That's it. Yeah. I only have one bottle left.
I remember that changing the way people looked at Rioja for a couple of years, and it really saw this brand just catapult in demand and its distribution and everything. So it was a wonderful moment for Rioja to get that kind of.
Yeah, and I would say it was mostly for those that are following Wine Spectator or were different style of drinker. Those that are Spanish wine drinkers obviously know Rioja, or European wine drinkers. But I think that what that did with the #1 wine is open up a new audience for Rioja.
Well, let's check it out with Victor.
Let's do it.
We have climbed a serious ladder here with this Rioja tasting, going from Rosé to a Reserve Blanco to a Crianza to a set of Reservas. And now we're going to talk again about Cune and Gran Reserva, the Imperial 2016, which just received 98 points. And to do that, we welcome back the CEO, Victor Urita, family member, 5th generation. Thank you, Victor, for sticking around and helping us. Let's talk about Imperial Gran Reserva 2016.
Okay, thank you, Ian. I don't know if Imperial is the best wine that we make, but it's certainly the one closest to my heart because it represents what my forefathers wanted to achieve 100 years ago, over 100 years ago, when they wanted to make a super Rioja. This is a wine that we don't produce every year. We only produce this wine in vintages that we consider excellent. Okay, so we skipped quite a few. And if you taste different vintages, what you need to be seeing there is a consistency of quality and style. The wine, when you smell it, it's the most beautiful wine. It has a churchy nose. You're going to say that's nonsense, but really that's what it is. It smells like an old Gothic church from Europe. It has a velvet texture. And again, you're going to think that's, what do you mean? That's nonsense. You don't eat velvet, but it has a velvet feel in your mouth. It has low alcohol, but at the same time, it's persistent and it stays there. And to me, those are the hallmarks of great wines that incur in contradictions, but at the same time can achieve something great. This is our harvest from last year. As you can see, that's the sorting tables for the fruit. That's where we make the wine. That's Maria, the winemaker. The previous image had Irene. She's the person in charge of viticulture. A very feminine company. And I think that shows in the wines. The best tasters are female. I think they're capable of detecting nuances that we can't. And I think that shows in the style of the wine. You know, again, I could get in trouble for genderizing the wine. I apologize for doing this, but I don't know. I think there's nothing wrong in saying that women are more elegant than men, and that this wine has elegance as its backbone, because that's what it should be about, you know. And the 16 vintage, it's a very special vintage, and it had great rating, great points, and of course, you know, those only go so far. They're only helpful in pointing us in the right direction. But the fact is, the 16 vintage is one of the best that we've had in a long time. The 16 was a very good vintage. We had a cool winter with plenty of rain. We harvested late. The growing season was very long, and those tend to be the better years.
Now, this wine is a different wine, a different vineyard selection. Is that what Imperial represents?
Yeah, it's a different everything from Cune. Cune we produce every year, and that is a big difference with Imperial. Imperial only comes from our own vineyards. In fact, it comes from our vineyards in three different villages. That's a picture of one of them. A beautiful picture of the main vintage, the main vineyard that goes into Imperial. It's called Torre Montalvo.
These vines are all untrained, untrellised. How old are we talking about vineyards?
In this particular vineyard, these were planted in the early 70s. These are dry farmed. Everything that we have is dry farmed. So yes, and it's goblet trained. We don't buy the new techniques. We do things as they were done 100, 200 years ago, and they work just fine for us. That's a good pick with the cellar. Now, when I see Bordeaux people selling now the 22 vintage, I think, wow, you know, that's extraordinary. The fact that they're able to do that, you know, I don't even know what the 22 is going to be like. You know, I'm hoping it's going to be great, but the wine isn't even in bottle yet. You know, we age the wine in barrel for up to 3 years. And once that period of aging is done, we bottle it, and we keep it in bottle for quite a few more years after that. So these are pictures that could be Imperial 17, 18, or 19 that have been bottled, but it's going to sit there for a few years before we even consider shipping it. And again, I think that's good. I think it's the fact that the current vintage now of Imperial is a 16. That's what, 7 years, 3 of which have been in barrel. The rest, the other 4, have been in bottle. The wine is not just ready to drink; it's silky smooth, and it's just right. You know, it's a cliche. You know, where people say, "Hey, you know, buy a couple of bottles, drink one now, and keep the other one for the future because it's going to be better." But in our case, it's a cliche that's actually true. You know, the wine will be better over time, but it's actually quite good now as well. So.
And do you have a favorite vintage in the history of your time or your life of tasting Rioja?
Do you know, I think 87 is my best vintage, but that's because it was my teenage years, and I had such a good time that year that it was just my best year ever. I'm hoping my wife isn't listening to this, but it was my best. And the 87 Imperial is fantastic, and it's drinking amazingly now.
I tell people all the time, when you want to drink a birth year wine, and I was born in 1968, and my friend was born in 1967. So anytime I see old bottles of Rioja from like the 60s available at a relatively reasonable price, if you bought them 10 years ago, you were stealing, you know, history, because the wines weren't that expensive.
People didn't know about these wines in the past, and when they're good, they're phenomenal. And I don't just mean from us. Yeah, I mean from other estates, other venerable estates from Rioja. If the wine is good, you will not be disappointed at all. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, it was great to spend some time with you. We're going to taste your wine now with the group, and I have a feeling they've already tasted it and drank it by this time, but we're going to talk about it. And we really appreciate hanging out with you and getting to learn about Cune and the differences here. And it's just a real pleasure to be able to produce this with you. And thank you for your time.
Ian, you're very welcome. Pleasure is entirely mine, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks you very much.
See you in November. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
So just so you know, we do try to squeeze a ton of information into these Zooms, and the videos are obviously being edited to the best of our ability. but there are full-length videos of each of these interviews on our YouTube channel. And I would highly recommend you going in and doing that if you have the time to revisit some of these and seeing the entire video that we did with Victor, which was 22 minutes long, by the way, for this wine. And it was quite wonderful. But Dane, did you have anything you wanted to add?
There are some very savvy people on this webinar, because I have seen many different in the chat. Everybody's like, it's too young. We need to buy some and hold it, and it's released and it totally is ready, to drink. But would it benefit with additional years? 100%. But you get that in that Gran Reserva style. You get those classic Rioja, the nose again, the balsamic, I get some clove, a little bit of that classic Rioja tobacco. It seems like a very classic Rioja nose. It's it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, and
very complex.
I'm certainly not arguing that this wine isn't young or too young. You can enjoy a sip of it now and really see that it's,
of course,
built for the cellar and built to be in this little taste is like your opportunity to decide if this is a place where you'd want to park your dollars. This wine does exponentially expand in its value over time. The 16, it will not be here for very much longer. I don't know what the next vintage is maybe you do, Dane or Nina, but they don't make it they probably make it 3-4 times a decade. And so the 16s just came out. It just got the big score. It's being consumed. We were fortunate that this Zoom kind of landed in this window, that it's a wine that was available, because we want to show you some really great examples. And this is just one that you can count on. And if you ever do get a chance to pick up older vintages of this wine, you'll appreciate the price that we're showing right here, because a wine that from this producer, that's that wine 2004. Look at Wine Searcher, what the 2004 is selling for. It's probably north of $200. And this wine just continues to perform that way as a nice asset in your cellar. And it's certainly a mark of someone who's a savvy collector. The blend I was being asked about, I don't know if we got to see that, so I'll open up the website and see what our store says, because it should, we put the time and effort in our store to list all these things, and sometimes there's even a link to a blog post to teach you about Rioja, that kind of stuff. 85 Tempranillo, 10 Graciano, 5 Masuelo is the blend on this particular wine. Nina, any further thoughts here? I got you on mute. I'm sorry, Nina.
We covered a lot, and Ian, what a spectacular selection you made. Really iconic Rioja and iconic Rioja bodegas, famous bodegas, and really all ageable wines. Fantastic.
Yeah, we often use Rioja in different types of ways. And I'm showing people what great values there are out there. There's a Rioja. When I show people, some of the great wines of the world, there's a Rioja. So there's an answer to the question in wine, and it's probably Rioja. And there's so much more to learn. If you want to get into collecting Rioja and tasting some of the older vintages, these wines are out there. They don't make 50 cases of these wines. They make thousands of cases. Like I mentioned earlier, as we were watching the video, this wine's made for the world market. And they go out there and collectors put them in their cellars. And sometimes they get drank, and sometimes they go back into the marketplace. And you can literally revisit history tasting these wines, tasting wines from the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, the 50s, the 40s. And Rioja is a fraction of the price of their competitive set in that same vintage, you know. So that's why I always tell people, if you want a great value from your birth year, think about Rioja, or maybe gifting Rioja to someone who's had a baby in the year, you know, 2016. They the kids grow up when they're 21. That 2016 is going to be absolutely in the driver's seat, and probably will sit there for the rest of its life. So it's a really great gift to give someone for their entirety of their life and their future. Dane, any closing thoughts before we close up shop today?
We did have one quick question in the chat about the pricing for the Lopez. We quickly skipped over that and curious what that was.
Got it. We definitely have to go back to that. So I'll pull that up.
Yeah, I don't want you to backtrack, but this is an important reason.
Yeah, well, this gives me a chance to show the website, and a fun tool is if you click this little Q button on the website and you just put in the word Lopez, you'll probably get everything that's Lopez de Heredia in 2 seconds. And I do have a number of different wines from Lopez. The wine that we tasted tonight is right here. It's the 95 point 2011 for $56.95. $56 for a 12-year-old wine. That's incredible. I mean, have any of you been to Paso or Santa Barbara or Napa to go wine tasting? Their 2021s are, you know, $100 and up. And so this is tasting history right here. I've got the whites and by the way, the white wine, we have the Reserva. This is a Reserva white, so multiple years, and you can see the color is changed. You know, it's gone from this fresher color to more of this darker amber. And you could drink. I've drank 1968 white wines. There are sensational. Might even shine brighter than the reds sometimes. It's a small category though, but really very, very fun to be able to do. And we do have the current vintage of the Gran Reserva from Lopez. The current vintage is 2001 at $229 a bottle. So that's how you do that. And these programs we do every Wednesday. We do a special tasting. We call them Zoom into Wine. Once a month, I get together with my LearnAboutWine team. They're standing behind me with the graphics and the videos and all this, and we reach out and we interview all these personalities. It takes a lot of time and effort, and I want to thank my entire team for all the work that they did to help me get this done. And I want to thank Rioja and Dane and Nina for really coming to us with this opportunity to really explore this great wine region. I have been to Rioja a number of times. It's been a few years since I've been back, so we have dedicated to go back at the end of this year. We tell people, you know, think of it like you're going to have Thanksgiving with your family on Thursday. You have leftovers on Friday. Get on an airplane on Saturday. Get and land in Spain on Sunday. That's when we start in Bilbao, and then we spend a week, and we're going to go all across northern Spain, and we're going to spend a couple of days in Rioja, and we'll learn a ton. We only take a few people. It's not a huge group, but we eat in some great restaurants and drink some amazing wines with some of these people. These people are going to be receiving us when we go there. The hospitality is incredible. So take a look at our upcoming Zoom calendar. We have a fantastic presentation coming on rosé. We're going to do with rosé what we did tonight with Rioja, really kind of showing off some of the best wines in the rosé category, some of the collectible wines, some of the top producers like Domaine Ott, Terra Brune, and we'll explore some different categories as well. And we got this Sauvignon Blanc Zoom, which is like a tasting of Sauvignon Blanc in 6 different countries. I'm going to be talking about some alternative white wines that this lineup of wines right here will blow your mind because these are truly special wines that we've pulled together from the kind of the untalked about corners of the earth. That wine, that Spanish wine on the right there is called a Chocolina. We're going to be including that in our discussion. Then we're going to do a dessert wine Zoom. Then some mega Paso Robles wines. I got some almost 100-point scoring wines that we're going to be showing off in this Paso tasting. And we're now putting together our next showcase, which will be on Zinfandel, which I'm a big fan of. And we're going to get some great brands involved in our Zinfandel Zoom. It's not for sale yet, but we put it up there so you can kind of save the date. All of our stuff for the month of May and starting into June here very soon will be available. So we'll continue on these Wednesday Zooms for the rest of the year and keep up the pace. I really thank you guys for making time for us tonight. And it's been wonderful to share this occasion with you all. And I'll stick around and continue to answer questions. But Dane and Nina, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian, and thanks to everybody. I'm hoping we have more visitors in Rioja. Please come and join us. We'd love to see you all.
Fantastic. And
thank you for everybody's time.
We can be a resource too. If you can't come with me, maybe you want to go on your own. I'll give you some great people to contact to help you with your trip and some resources to be able to get to see some of these great things that we've been talking about. Tim and Nancy, thank you for joining us. Where were you guys zooming in from tonight on this occasion? There you are.
Yep, we're at home here in LA.
In LA?
Yep.
Were you
Yeah.
were you tasting the wines with us tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And they were all wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Did you have a particular favorite?
All of the above.
Yeah, but I really like both the Cunets, but I really like the, I mean, the Grand Reserva was wonderful, but I really like the other Cunet also.
For $20, it's just a super little wine that can go with, everyday life and really give you a nice reward.
Yeah.
Another cool thing about these wines too, I use Corvin a lot. And because these wines have some time in wood, they age really gracefully. Even a Crianza, you can have that in your cellar for 10 years and not see the diminishing returns. It's just a tremendous value.
Yeah,
Lisa, thanks. Oh, sure, go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say it'll be on our list. We're always looking for good everyday wines.
Absolutely. And I always jokingly say too, it's easy to find $100 wines that you love, but finding something in the value zone is probably a little bit more work. And so we love kind of being able to explore both. And that's why I wanted to kind of go in and out of, here's a great one, here's a great value, here's a great one, here's a great value. And, kind of expand our understanding of this category a little bit. So thank you all very much. Have a great night, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.